Today I'm going to be swatching Looxi's new collection, and I'm going to be doing a few comparisons, as you can see. Before we get into it, I just want to talk a little bit about Looxi's formula and my overall thoughts on this collection. Looxi's formula is a little more squishy, but some of these shadows I felt were on the thicker side, which Looxi sometimes does, but I feel like it's usually more on the squishy side rather than on the thick side. And I feel like the majority of the shades in this collection are on the thick side. There's very few of them that don't feel very thick to me. And I also want to point out one thing that, I was overall a little bit let down with this collection, but I think it's because I had high hopes for it for a few different reasons. And the first one that I really want to point out in the beginning is that Looxi used to have this disclaimer that would say, due to the large particle size, it's recommended that you use these shadows with the glitter glow. And that disclaimer would only be added to the sparkly shades. However, all the shades in this formula had a disclaimer, which is why I was hoping and expecting that all of these were going to be sparkly, either the sparkly formula or the super sparkly formula. But that's not the case. At least these two here are not sparkly. They are, metallic, satin maybe, or they have like a really small particle size. So that's one of the main things that let me down, was that I was expecting something different than what I got. The other shades are sparkly. They have some level of sparkle, but not all of them. So if Looxi starts putting that disclaimer now in every single shade they make, it's going to be even harder for us consumers to figure out what we're buying. Because before, that was the only thing we could use on Looxi's website to figure out what was sparkly and what was not. So I just want to point that out, to be careful, because not everything with that disclaimer is going to be sparkly. So let's get into the swatches, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on the shades as I go. So the first one we have here, it's called Smitty, and this shade has a yellow base with blue sparkles that shift purple pink, pinky purple. I don't know what color that is. And it might sound familiar to you because there is a shade that this is a dupe for. And this is, I think, probably one of my favorite shades in the collection, because I actually think it holds up to the dupe. Okay. And I think this one, as you can see, it is a sparkly, but it's not ultra sparkly. The second shade we have is called Gold Rush, and it is a gold eyeshadow. This one is super sparkly, and it is a thicker formula. Like when I touch it, my finger picks up a lot immediately. And even though it's a pretty shade, I don't think this is a new shade. Gold shadows have been done many times. So this one for me, it's not really unique or special, but it's pretty. It's quite sparkly, as you can see. The third shade is called Honeydew, and it's a bit of a deeper bronze, but this one has something unique about it, that it has these like tiny pink sparkles throughout it. And this one, I would say it's also kind of the thicker formula. And I think you can see that it is quite more deep, and it is a sparkly too. I think maybe a tiny bit less sparkly than this one. Gold Rush, I think it's called. Okay, now we're gonna do this one called Razzle Dazzle, and this is one that disappointed me a bit because it's not really sparkly. It definitely has some shine to it, but I wouldn't say it's sparkly. And this one feels also quite thick. But I think you can see that it's really not sparkly. It's shiny, but not sparkly. Also not super shiny either. This one here is called Groovy Baby, and this is another one that disappointed me. This one to me is even less shiny than the previous one. And this one also feels quite thick. Oh wait, you're not in focus. And this one has this muted green base with pink sparkles that shift gold green. This one is called Glitz and Ritz, and that is definitely one of the most sparkly ones. And this one doesn't feel, to me, as thick as the other ones. It has more of that like emollient, squishy formula. And this one has like pink, blue, purple. It has like multicolored sparkles. And I think you can see it's really, really sparkly. Then the last one is called Liquid, and this is a shade that Looxi has done many different versions of. It's like this blue with like gold, like champagne sparkles. I don't know what color that is. But none of the shades that they have done are exactly the same. This one doesn't feel as thick to me. It feels a little drier. And yeah, Looxi has done a few different versions of this, but they all have different tones of blue. And they tend to be also darker. This is the lightest of the versions that they've done. So this is the whole collection here. Okay, now let's get into the comparisons. The first shade here that we have is Looxi's Shimmy. And this is, I'm gonna swatch it. This is color-wise a dupe for Terra Moon's Lightspeed, which I already think is a pretty cheap shade for how dimensional it is. I want to see how sparkly they are in comparison to each other, because I feel like the Looxi shade doesn't look that sparkly on the pan, but it does swatch to be quite sparkly. So now let's see Terra Moon's Lightspeed. So Lightspeed feels a lot more drier, a lot more like a powder eyeshadow. I think I have to wash my arm because it's stained. So I do think it might be a little bit more user-friendly. So I think that color-wise, they are perfect dupes for each other. But if I'm gonna be picky, I would say Lightspeed has a little bit more of the wet looking sparkle, but they are very, very, very similar. And this shade, you know, I think it's at $8 at Terra Moon's. I already think it's a pretty good price for it because of how dimensional it is. Now Looxi doing it for $3 makes it even better. And I do think that this is one that, if you don't want to pay $8 on the for the Terra Moon shade, I think you would be really happy with a Looxi Shimmy. And then I also wanted to compare to this other Looxi shade, which is different. This is Margarita. This came out with the Cocktail Happy Hour collection. I'm trying to see if it has the same shift. Okay, this one is straight on. It does not have the blue sparkle. It's always like pink sparkle. So it doesn't have it's not as shifty and dimensional as the other ones, but I think you can see it's also a yellow, super sparkly yellow. But the color that it is straight on, it's more like the color that these two shift to, and this one does not have a shift. Okay, now for these other comparison, none of these are 100% dupes, but these are all like different golds that Looxi has done over the years. So the first one here we have is Gold Rush from this collection. I'm just gonna put at the top. I had to wash my arm because it was pretty stained from the other shades. So yeah, this is Gold Rush. Then here we have Lemon Head from their other collection. Lemon Head feels even thicker than Gold Rush. I mean, Gold Rush has like, I don't know, almost a pinky base, but I think that on the eyes, these can give a very similar effect. And then the last one, which is definitely different, is Saltwater Taffy. This one is definitely darker. Maybe I will add at the bottom here the other shade, the other gold shade from this collection, because I think it could fit. this one called Honeydew. Let's see. Yeah, Honeydew proves more neutral. Saltwater Taffy from these is my favorite. I think it's the most dimensional of them all. Okay, now this shade, which is the Razzle Dazzle, Looxi just keeps doing this shade. The first version of this that came out was in a collection last year where they came out with a lot of very similar shades in this family, and it was the shade First Class. And then they just kept coming out with it. So yeah, this shade here at the end isn't exactly the same, but swatch that, you're gonna see it's very similar. These three here though, I don't see any differences on the pan, but let's see. So the first one is Razzle Dazzle. I don't know, I just don't like the way these shadows feel. And I usually like Looxi shadows, but there's something about these that bother me. I don't know what it is. Okay, so this is Razzle Dazzle. Now this is First Class. Yeah, First Class feels smoother. I don't know, Razzle Dazzle kind of feels thick and dry at the same time. I don't know. Yeah, I don't see any differences between these shades. Yeah, even when I put it against the light, I can kind of see they have like this blue shift. I don't think the blue shift is visible on the eyes. But yeah, they feel 100% the same. They look 100% the same. And then the last one is Hunky Dory, which came out with the last collection. Yeah, they swatch the same, they look the same. Yeah, even on my finger, when I put it against the light, the base kind of changed to a purple and the sparkle kind of changed to a blue. And straight on, it's more like a slightly warm base with this straight on green sparkles. Yeah, I don't see a difference. And then the last one is called Blitzen. It has on the pan a more visible purple, like darker purple base, but it kind of has like the same greenish sheen. I think you can see it's more cool toned. But I do think that on the eyes, it's gonna give a very similar effect. Oh, that's a terrible swatch. But yeah, I don't really think you need all of these. Now this was my biggest disappointment because when I saw this shade online, a Groovy Baby, I was so hopeful that this was going to be a perfect dupe to Clionadh Royal Pair. You know, this is like $3 shade and Royal Pair is like $14, I think. So I was really hoping it was going to be a dupe for Clionadh Royal Pair. And even though you're going to see it is a dupe in terms of color, it is not a dupe in terms of finish. And for me, that is a big deal. So let me show you. Groovy Baby has this muted green base with pinky purple, like it's a pink sparkle that looks more purple when you put it next to other pinks, that shifts to like gold and green, and that's exactly the same as Clionadh Royal Pair. Now I hope you can see when I put Royal Pair next to it. Royal Pair is already a subdued shade to me. It is definitely not a super sparkly shade, and I do feel that on my eyes, Royal Pair is subdued, you know? It's a shade that I could wear to work because it feels neutral enough for me, especially because it's not super sparkly. Now, Groovy Baby, it's just so much less shiny that I just don't like it. Like, it has the color, but it doesn't give me the same effect. I'm trying to show you. And for me personally, I would rather spend $14 on a shade that I'm gonna love and use rather than spend $3 on a shade that I'm gonna be disappointed. I do think that for $3, it's really good because it is definitely a multi-chrome. But I think you can see, it just doesn't give that same shine as Clionadh. I think maybe here on my finger you can see. So this is Clionadh, this is Looxi. the shine is just different, you know. Groovy Baby on my eyes is barely shiny at all, and I feel like I have to go with a topper to actually get the shine to come through. And the shine is what shifts. It's not the base that shifts, it's the shiny particles. So if you can't see the shiny particles on your eyes, then you can't see the shift on your eyes. So because of that, even though on my arm, when I put it against the light, I can see the shift, in the end, I feel like the result on my eyes, it's just different. It's just very different. I think you can see when I turn my arm here that the Looxi shade just doesn't have the sparkle. Wait, let me try to do with a different light. So I don't even consider Royal Pear to be a sparkly shade. I consider it to have like a small particle size. So then Groovy Baby compared, it's really more of a satin shade. So if you don't care about the sparkle, I think you're going to be really happy with Groovy Baby. But if you're like me, you know, like wants to wear a shadow like this as a one and done, then I think, and you care about the sparkle, I think Groovy Baby would let you down. I feel like for me, the price difference here is actually very noticeable. And the last comparison here, we have Glitz and Ritz, Looxi Cosmo. I know, they keep duping themselves. And this is a Cliona shade called Engrave, which I don't think it's exactly the same, but I just wanted to include in here because I noticed that it's very similar. So let's start with Ritz and Glitz. Maybe I'll do here because my arm got stained from the green. I think I'll do it here. I don't know why my camera just wants to focus on my hand. Okay, I think this is a little bit better. Focus on the swatch. What is wrong with you? Okay, so this is Glitz and Ritz. Now this is Cosmo, which I think is like the same. Yeah, I don't see any difference between Glitz and Ritz and Cosmo. Maybe Glitz and Ritz has a little bit more of blue sparkles in it, but I mean it's minimal. And then the last one is Engrave. Engrave does not have any blue sparkles, but the tone of the pink is just so similar. For this situation here, I actually prefer the Looxi shades to the Cliona shade. I think that the Looxi shades look more dimensional, they look more wet than the Cliona shade. And I think you can see when I turn my arm how they look. Even Glitz and Ritz looks even more sparkly than Cosmo. If you want to see more comparisons, I highly recommend to check out Catherine's B Beauty YouTube channel. She already has a video up swatching and comparing all these shades, and I know that she compares it to some different shades than I did, so I would highly recommend to check her out. She's also almost at 1,000 subscribers, so if you haven't subscribed to her channel yet, I would also recommend that you do. She posts a lot of indie eyeshadow content, so if you don't know her channel yet, I think that you probably would enjoy it. This is it. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, just please let me know down below, and I'll try my best to answer it, and I'll see you on my next one.